Okay, so in this next section, we're going to talk about the scoreboard and how we might increase people's scores if they go through a gate. There are two main elements to changing a score. One is a TextMesh Pro uh, item, which is going to hold the score, hold the text of the score. And the other is the button, which is just a transparent button that sits on top of that and triggers this function in the scoreboard script. So let's have a look at the scoreboard script. Um, it starts off by defining a list of TextMesh Pro items, and those TextMesh Pro items are each of these scores. So score R1, score R3, score R5, and so on. So they're just manually populated in the inspector into that list of scores on the board. Additionally, we have a um, we have a we have TextMesh Pro fields for the total red score and the total white score, and those are these going to be displayed up here in the top right hand corner. And what's displayed in there is obviously an addition of all the scores. Now the scores are actually kept on, the numerical score is kept on the ball itself. So it's a property of the ball. So what we've done is added a public integer called score to the ball script. So every ball carries its information about its own score. So clearly as we change the score, when we click the transparent button, we trigger this function. The correct ball is identified. So when we click this button here, for example, the a 0 is passed. If we click this button here, an 8 is passed. And of course, those are the correct orders of the balls in the original list of balls that was created at the start. So before we do anything, we're actually just going to store the old score that's on the ball. So we say make this variable old score equal to what's on the ball at the moment, and then if we're not holding the shift key down, in other words, if we're doing things normally, then trigger this function here, score change, which takes the old score and adds to it. If we are holding the shift key down, then we take the old score and subtract off it. Now this is in case you've made a mistake and just clicked to increase the score when in fact a point wasn't made and you want to reverse that decision. And then having done that, then change the take the new text that is on the scoreboard item and send that to the ball. So in other words, update the score on the ball. And then finally run this function called tally scores. We'll actually deal with the tally scores first because it's basically just taking each of the scores for each of the balls and adding them together to make a team score. So you do that for each of the 10 balls and you do it in the blocks of the even numbers and the odd numbers to get the score, the cumulative score for the entire team. So the guts of the script is actually this change score thing, which is going to take the incoming score, which is the old score, and it's either going to increase or decrease the score, depending on whether we've had the shift key held down. So in comes the score, and we set it to new score, and if then we're adding and the incoming score is less than 5, then we actually want to increase the score. And if that's the case, then we're going to increase the score by 1 unless it's the final Agari point, in which case we'll be doing it by 2. So if the incoming is less than 3, we haven't actually made our 3 gates yet, so we increase the score by 1. If it isn't less than 3, we must have already made the 3 gates, and we increase the score by 2. And then this section here is just how we deal with if we want to minus the score. If we made a mistake and we're holding the shift key down and we're telling the scoreboard to actually decrease the score for a particular uh, ball, then it's a very similar structure, only this time if the incoming is less than 4, then subtract 1, otherwise subtract 2, and then return the new score. So that's basically how it works. When we click on the button, we're sending a command to this score change function. That then decides whether to add or subtract the scores and how much to add and subtract. And at the end of it, we tally the scores. So we get all the odd numbered balls and add their numbers together, and all the even balls and add their numbers together. So when we look at this in action, what we will see is that every time we click on the ball, then on the score, it goes up. So 1, 2, 3, and the next one will be 5. So 1, 2, 3, and you'll notice that the team score is increasing at the same time. Now, if we make a mistake, so for example, if ball number 4 didn't actually make the second gate, and we hold the shift key down and press, then it goes to 1. So we can reduce the scores as well. Good. So that's the middle part of this scoreboard fleshed out, and we'll move next on to some of the player attributes.